How is everyone doing today? Did you enjoy your day off? Did you go take a hike? I told you I'll take a hike. I hope you guys stayed away from ledges and sharp objects. I hope we've all calmed down, and we're going to talk about some stuff today that you don't have to get worked up about, because we're talking about prospects, draft prospects, and we're answering your questions as well. The reason I like talking about prospects is because they have, well, some of them have failed, but it's bad stuff that hasn't happened yet. They haven't failed really at the major league level. There's still promise. There's still hope. Things that are unfinished are more fun to dream about and talk about. So it's a much happier subject. Jeff, are you feeling in a better mood today?
No, but no, okay. Hey, it's tomorrow's always. It was a beautiful day. I just unfortunately didn't really get to go outside. So yes. It was fine. I missed not having baseball. I missed it. Even when it's bad, I miss Guardians baseball.
I still watch baseball of the minor league variety, and we're going to talk about some of that today, because when the future, like I said, the future is unknown and there's so much potential. It's always happy when there's potential because nothing bad has happened yet. So we're going to talk about some of that today on Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. I am Jeff Ellis. One of your hosts over there is Justin Latta. Today's show is brought to you by our good friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. We had a lot of fun things to talk about. I just got thrown off because someone unblocked me. I hadn't expected right before the show there. But like I said, I missed not having a game. Like, I literally sat there and was like, oh, even when there's bad baseball, I'd rather have baseball. We do have some fun talk, though, about the games this weekend. I think, you have a better hold on it. So why don't you handle our fun bit of information?
Yeah, fun fact on Sunday, Tanner Bybee versus Patrick Sandoval. And you can listen to this game on Sirius XM at 11:35 on Sunday, because the Guardians are playing on Peacock. But on Sirius XM, you can listen to it as well at 11:35. Tanner Bybee versus Patrick Sandoval, high school teammates. That should be a lot of fun. Too bad the game's not in California, but I hear it is going to be a big deal back in that part of the state. So that should be a lot of fun. But it might not be fun for the Guardians offense, because Patrick's a lefty and Patrick's pitched fairly well this year.
Velocity lefties. The one thing they seem to do okay against.
We're not going to be negative today, Jeff. The future is unwritten, so it still has a chance of being good. So we're going to be positive today. Well, I got to say, there are some things I'm not going to be positive about, but we'll see. We've got a lot to talk about, though. So this is how it's going to go. It's Around the Farm Friday, college baseball / MLB Draft segment of the week. And then we've got all mailbag questions. We're going to try to answer as many mailbag questions as we can on the audio portion, and then if we don't get to them on the audio portion, we are forced to be cut off at a half hour. Go over to YouTube and watch the rest, because there are so many that we cannot fit this all in a half hour. So, jam-packed show. Are you ready?
Go.
Let's dig in. All right,
we'll Gavin stay and watch. Don't go. But
yeah, stay and watch. Don't go anywhere, please. Don't go. Don't leave us. Gavin Williams was awesome Wednesday. We referenced this on Thursday's show. If you were listening, if you're an everydayer, easily, I don't want to say the best start of his minor league career, but it was one of the best. I mean, he was great. Struck out 10 in 5 2/3 innings, had 2 walks, both ironically to Will Benson, who I saw this from a buddy who covers the Reds. I think you know who he is too, Jeff. I'm trying to think of his name off the top of my head. I think you know the guy, but Will Benson was like 10 for his last 45, but he had 22 walks. And I was like, so Will Benson's being Will Benson.
He's hitting under 200, but in OPS like 760 in AAA.
So 2 walks for Will Benson. And then he did give up a home run. Williams did to Matt McLean on a 99-mile-an-hour fastball that McLean drove over the right field wall. But Williams came back the next batter, and he faced Christian Encarnacion Strand, who's been a great prospect this year for the Reds. 100, 101, 101. on 3 pitches. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. Gavin was mad, so don't make Gavin angry because he'll pitch well. But his fastball averaged 98 in that start. He touched 101 a couple of times. 17 swings and misses with the fastball. The Louisville Bats, the Reds AAA club, 36 swings against that fastball. 17 times they missed. He threw it for a strike 7 times. That is a 41% called or swinging strike rate. If you're not familiar with that stat, it basically just adds the number of whiffs and number of called strikes on a pitch, divides it by the amount of pitches thrown, and you get 41% there. And I think 30 to 40% is generally pretty freaking good for one pitch. So Gavin Williams was great. We're going to talk about him a little bit more because people had some questions about him later in the podcast, but fantastic start by him. Maybe his best minor league start ever.
Yeah. I mean, he's got multiple plus pitches. He's got, the velocity. It's just hopefully, he can be the one who the health does not catch up with.
And I will say, I don't know if he had to get used to the baseball. So his first start, I don't know, I think we talked about it. The spin rate on his fastball was kind of underwhelming. Spin rate on his fastball in this start was 22.42, which I think is a little bit up from what it was the first start. So, could have been getting used to the baseball as well. I don't know what the vertical carry on his fastball was. They don't have that on this one available to me. I could look at it, but I'm not going to do it this moment. A guy who had a really great start last time out, Joey Cantillo, we talked about last week, 13 strikeouts in 5 innings. This is kind of where things are at with Joey Cantillo. This is why he's still in Double-A, and I don't think you're going to see him this year. His next start, 3 1/3, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts, 3 runs, a home run, a wild pitch, a hit batter. So control still wanes game to game. Just could not locate his fastball. Had a couple of secondaries just not fall for him either. So it's still a lot of inconsistencies with him. I mean, he's walked at least 2 batters in every start. So there's still things to work on there. I don't think you'll see him. I don't think you'll see him this year. I think it would have to go very perfectly if he gets one of those like late season bullpen call-ups. I think he'd have to really take off.
I still think there's a chance. I'm just going to say, I still think because they have limited spots on the roster and he is at least already there.
Yeah, maybe. I still think they really, it depends on what his innings limit is at this point. That could be September, and who knows if he'll even be still pitching by then. One of the games I watched on Thursday night was Doug Nikhazy and Jack Leftwich. Still holding out hope for Doug Nikhazy. Like Joey Cantillo, things kind of move in and out for Doug Nikhazy. He struck out 4, walked 3 in 4 innings through 60 pitches. The stuff is good for Nikhazy, I'll be honest. I think he's got 3 pitches. The slider has improved. The curveball is obviously still fantastic. The fastball, he was getting up to 94, so that was good. And it gets swings and misses in the zone because of his angle and the extension and all that stuff. And it looked really good. It got swings and misses in the zone. The curveball was good. The 3 walks, it's just like batter to batter. It goes with him. Like one inning, he struck out 2 in a row, and the next inning, he walked 2 batters. Like it just comes and goes with him. So still working on consistency with him, but I still am holding out hope. I have long been a Doug Nikhazy stand, and I'm really hoping at some point we are watching him pitch high leverage innings for the Guardians. Maybe it's a relief role, but I'm still holding out hope that there is a role for him in the future. Jack Leftwich came in behind him in a tandem, as they've been doing all year. Leftwich was fantastic, I thought. He did give up a home run, a couple deep pitch counts, but fastball was up to 95. He was throwing 93, 94. His slider can be very ungodly at times, which is fun. Changeup's a little bit firm. It was like 88, and there's really not a whole lot of depth to it. It's got a little bit of fade, but it's still a little bit more like a split change, I would say. So it's got some work, but the fastball slider, a good combination for him. And I hold out hope for Jack starting, but I still think Jack would be a terrific reliever.
Yeah, I was never much of a Nikhazy guy. He felt like a maxed out guy. Which is made perfect sense in the second round, where this team seems to always grab guys who end up not quite living up to the second round value.
There's still potential there.
There's still potential, yeah, but the second round is definitely like the bugaboo round for this team.
Yeah,
they cannot seem to get the second round right ever. It's like you do have Joey Bell, aka Albert Bell. He was drafted as Joey. That's why I went with that there. And I read about his today in Guardians history is the day he threw a baseball at a fan. Side note.
Nice.
Didn't plan to talk about that, but I was looking at the history site. And then yesterday I was looking at the history site. And then Jason Kipnis. I thought for a chance that Kipnis might approach Bell's second round value, but yeah, it's been a arguably outside of like the 10th, it might be their worst round in the top 10 rounds is the second. So
Ethan Hankins came back on Saturday last week. We talked about that. I didn't get to see him, but he was 92, 96, I heard. All over the place control-wise, which, pretty much as we expected. He was going to be rusty and didn't look good at times, but
it takes a year to get that control back.
It's going to take some time, I think, with him. But, hey, 92, 96 after a couple of years off like that, that's good to see. It's going to be
do you think they protect him at the end of the year if he is down in low A and throwing like this? I still think it's a no, but
it depends on how he looks this year. I mean, if he's throwing 92, 96 all year, possibly, but he's still so far away. I just can't see him sticking. So I think it's a very big risk to do that because I just don't see how he sticks. Like he's missed a couple of years of injuries anyway. You can't really feign injury anymore with him and play games.
Yeah.
So. George Valera came back on Thursday night as well. He had a hit and walk and a strikeout. The hit was a hard line drive back up the middle off Brandon Williamson, but it actually hit Williamson. I think it would have gone to center field had it not hit him, but that was the base hit for Valera. He played center. I'm not going to spend too much time on Valera because we have some questions about him as well. So we'll discuss that in the later part of the show in the mailbag. Got a couple more guys here before we move on to the college baseball segment of the week. Guy Lipscomb now has 20 steals at low A. It has been not even a month. It's been a month of baseball, 5 weeks of baseball. He went 3 for 5 with 2 RBI on Thursday with 2 more steals. He's got 20. It's insane. Again, you have to be super careful about scouting stat line. I mean, actually, don't even say super careful. Don't scout stat lines at low A. It's bad. The level's bad. Pitchers aren't giving catchers a chance to throw guys out. Control's bad. It's bad. But, good for Guy Lipscomb and not really a surprise, truthfully.
Yeah, he's probably one of the 5 best guys in the system.
Yeah. Magnus Ellerts, I will scout the stat line a little bit here, but he is pitching very fantastic at low A. Very interested to see what ends up going on with him. I'd like to see him get to high A so I can get a look at him in person, but 37% strikeout rate in 12 innings, a 6.5% walk rate. Cade Smith pitched for Akron tonight. He was 93, 94. I think he hit 95 a couple times. Slider was just okay. Control was kind of all over the place, unfortunately, but he's only got a 2.5 this year and a 9.3 walk rate, so that's pretty good for him. I still think there's a relief role ahead for him at some point. I don't know if it's this year, but he will have to be protected. We'll see if some team wants to take a chance on him. Kevin Kelly, I should say, and eventually Nick Enright are both going to have good years, I think. So, never know with these relievers. And then really quickly, John Kenson-Noel, some people asking about him. He played third base tonight. Go to my Twitter if you haven't. He made a play. He didn't make a play at third base, but the Louisville official scorer didn't call it an error. He called it a hit. This is why you should not ever think you can judge minor league or a fielder's how good a fielder is in the minors based on fielding percentage, because this ball that Noel failed to field was an error. It should have been an error, and he should not be a third baseman, but he's playing third base because Valera's down there and because Oscar's back in AAA, and they're getting him at bats at third base. But John Kenson-Noel is not a third baseman. I know he hit a 116-mile-an-hour grounder, but guess what? It was a double play. So there's your John Kenson-Noel update, Jeff.
I didn't ask for it, but it's fine. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, he is what he is. I know he's part of team injury, but my expectations are pretty low there.
They should be. All right, we got the MLB Draft segment of the week coming up, plus your mailbag questions in segment 3. And as we said, we'll try to answer them all in the audio portion, but a half hour we have to go. So go over to YouTube for whatever we miss.
I'm going to talk about Sorare. I talked about him yesterday. And again, it's the word so and then the word rare, just to lay it out there, make it easy on everyone. And I like it because I just find it fun. It's low-key fantasy. We're talking about it in our group chat. And I learned today, let me give you some knowledge here if you're trying Sorare out. that, again, it's important to build up to have two teams, but if you train guys, then they're worth, instead of like 5 points of value, which is kind of like the average, it's a 5.5. And then, the system is like, if you unlock like the rarer cards, they can be worth more. So there is that component, and you want to, but I have, like I said, I'm just having fun playing the game, going in there, learning how it works, those scarcity cards, but which you can unlock, or game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, VIP experiences, or you can just be like me and just play low key and have fun getting your unlocks and seeing how you do every week. So head to sorare.com/lockedon. That's spelled SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards. Set your lineup and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today.
And don't forget, on Friday at 7:10, first pitch for the Guardians and the Angels. Check out SiriusXM. That is, I believe, Logan Allen versus Tyler Anderson. So another soft-tossing lefty in Logan Allen. So hopefully better things to come when you're checking out the game on SiriusXM on your Friday evening. Should be good weather in Cleveland, I think. All right. Jeff, are you ready to roll? We've got
I am.
lots to talk about.
I got all these banners. We're not going to get through all my banners that I've thrown together of players, but I thought taking some advice from our chat, putting some colleges and names here. So I kind of ruined it a little bit with this, with Nick Laurosso from Maryland. But if I asked you who leads Maryland in home runs, batting average, on base percentage, or not, I'm sorry, not on base percentage, an average, and home runs, you would probably guess Matt Shaw. It's not. It's Nick Laurosso now. Both of them have been fantastic players. Shaw does lead in slugging by 4 percentage points and on base by 36. He's been the better player, but Laurosso actually hasn't beaten total bases. And he is a senior sign to look at, a player who has been super effective, Villanova to Maryland guy. This is his 5th year in college baseball. He's played an absolute ton of games, nearly 200. He'll hit over 200 games by the time his career is done. Even did a little bit of pitching early on. And he's just a statistical performer who had some very limited success on the Cape. He didn't get a lot of opportunities, but he was there. But if you're looking for a senior sign who's highly productive, and if we, Justin and I both agree, Matt Shaw, if he's on the board, is probably a Guardian. And again, people get upset about that because he's an infield. He's not. He's probably an outfielder or a second baseman, and he has plus power. So just calm down. You want plus power, that's Matt Shaw. But if you're paying attention to Maryland, if you're going there and scouting them a lot because you do like Matt Shaw, then you might also be thinking this Nick Laurosso is at least interesting because he's performing so well, and he could be a senior sign candidate. Moving down the list of guys that intrigue me, I'm going to jump to Kemp Alderaan. Actually, that's not his name. That's what Justin read it as at first. He's like, oh. So Kemp Alderman
I don't like him anymore.
Not as big of a fan. He Ole Miss, but while he's an Ole Miss guy, he is very similar to Hunter Renfroe, who was Mississippi State. Both were catchers and pitchers, and good athletes for their size. I'm trying to remember if Renfroe was young for his class. He might have been, but Alderman isn't going to turn 21 until August, end of August at that. So he is a young junior. What has he done this year? Well, he's got 19 home runs, not as many as Laurosso and Shaw, but he's got a 443 on base, 733 slugging, a walking 11% of the time, and his strikeout is 17, which is nice because, again, big power, but the strikeouts aren't as high. Now, the book on him is there is swing and miss there, but he's limiting it. He has gotten better at that this year, and he's a fairly athletic guy. But again, if you want a big guy with some power and some athleticism, Alderman is a guy who I think is going to probably be maybe in that second round range. We just talked about how bad the Guardians are in the second round, but he's an interesting player. He's not quite like the Renfroe level, but that's going to be the comps in most places. But I think he stands out for that. Some reports the Guardians looked at Decade Kuehler from Campbell a few times. Campbell turned into a pitching factory over there in the Big South. He's cut back on his walks. The control and the command are concerns. He's striking out 12 per 9, which is solid, but again, it's in the Big South. It's not. I'd be curious what Thomas Harrington. I should pull him up. His teammate did a year ago in a similar situation.
I liked Thomas Harrington last year.
I liked Harrington as well, but he was a draft eligible sophomore. Harrington was 10.78 strikes per 9 to a 175 walk per 9, so better control numbers. I'm not sure if it says anything in particular that they're like going to look to get him. I think he's more of a second rounder. Nobody is really stepping up in this pitching class, but we know that they have at least been spotted in and around that area. Let's have some fun. Let's dive into a lesser known name. So Liam Sullivan was really good on the Cape. He is a Georgia pitcher. They have drafted from Georgia. He has control issues, so not your typical Guardians pitcher. I think he was tied for second in the Cape in strikeouts last year, all coming as a reliever. This is interesting. So the data I have is contradictory on him because he also had some starts. So he has incomplete data, it looks like. Over
5 starts, 8 games overall.
His data is contradictory between Baseball Cube and Baseball Reference. Just for fun. But I think the Baseball Reference data is the correct one. So he had starts. He worked out of the pen. He was number 2 in strikeouts in the Cape, which they value. They have drafted guys who've excelled in the Cape, but had bad junior years. Not that's necessarily a bad junior year for him, but he is walking more guys than we typically see with a guy that the Guardians like to target. The strikeouts per 9 are over 10. That's one of those things we look at. And the other reason that he just stands out as maybe a day 3 guy to me is there's a few. Home run rate has always been over 1. We know they prefer guys who put it in the air. Like that's actually not a negative for the Guardians. So the ball's in the air. He's 6'6", 230. He's got a Parker Messick build. And they weren't scared off by a lefty who had some success last year who, needs to put in a little time. And then if you're also looking at him as low to mid 90s, you're like, okay, so just like Messick a year ago, if we can get this guy to commit, we can get some more muscle mass. There is more velocity in there. Could also maybe lead to better control because you're going to have a little, better athleticism. There's things to look at in that. And he is still 20 years of age. He's not going to be 21 until next week. So he is also young for the class. So you're looking at potential growth ceiling there. You're looking at a program that's not good at pitcher development that they have targeted in the past. And you're looking at some other factors into why there could be more ceiling and growth there, as well as strong SEC performance. Again, he's more of a day 3 guy. Everyone's favorite, coughing on the mic. But, I could see him as an 11th round target, very specifically for those reasons. So I still got like 5 other guys that I'm not going to get to right now. But I just want to throw one last weird name here. And I don't mean weird name in the way of like, it is a hard to pronounce name, but it's more that like, cause he's not someone you're going to hear people talk about. And that's Owen Diodati, who has barely played this year at Oregon. Barely played. Again, was fantastic in the Cape a year ago. A 344 batting, 500 on base, 557 slugging. That's an 80 plate appearances. So he had a nice big run there. He was a starter as a sophomore at Alabama. He, for whatever reason, his junior year didn't get to play. Goes to Oregon, still doesn't get to play. He is a senior, but he is 21 years of age. Won't be 22 until August. He's a young senior, plus power potential. Canadian kid, was drafted out of high school by the Toronto Blue Jays, and is another senior signing type where you're like, okay, so plus power potential, converted catcher, big arm in the outfield, plus power potential. Hasn't gotten opportunities. Has bounced through 2 schools. Looked really good on the Cape. Again, if you're looking for a senior sign, like, wouldn't you rather run the risk on the 6'3", 215-pound athletic Canadian kid who just hasn't had a chance yet, who showed something? Like, it's weird that he can't get off Oregon's bench and was one of the best hitters in the Cape. Like, that's just odd. I was trying to find out if he's hurt. But there's a lot of reasons to think like there's a lot more ceiling here than in your typical senior sign. And again, he's still only 21 years of age. So that's a fun name to check out. But I'm going to throw it to Justin for our next break.
All right. We got your mailbag questions here on the rest of the audio portion. And then, like I said, if we don't get to it on the audio portion, we will finish on the video portion. So we will let you know when you can head to YouTube to hear the rest of the mailbag. But we're going to get to some of them in just a second. Well, I talked about the other night that I had to buy some Jonas Brothers tickets for my fiance. I'm going to that concert, by the way. I'm actually kind of looking forward to it, low key. She's been to a lot of them, so she spent a lot of years getting tickets and worrying about when they go on sale and getting a good seat and finding out where the seat is going to be. But a lot of that stress can go away when you're using the Game Time app. You can browse through the Game Time app to look at upcoming stuff in your area. They got flash deals and last minute seats. So if you didn't get those Jonas Brothers tickets, this concert's not until September. So you've got some time, actually. They do have an image view of the seats there, which I always find very helpful when you're looking for seats. Make sure you're not sitting behind a pole or in the nosebleeds. They have the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection. Game Time is the place for last minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Exclusive flash deals for all sports, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference. Snag tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use Locked On MLB as your code to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms are going to apply, but again, create an account, redeem the code Locked On MLB to get $20 off your first purchase on the Game Time app. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And make sure Friday night you are checking out Sirius XM for the Guardians and Angels series and all weekend long. 7:10 first pitch on Friday night and 11:35 on Sunday morning. I'm over on Peacock too. All right. Are you ready for the mailbag, Jeff?
Always.
All right. Let's start out with our buddy Zach Fino, MVP. I don't know if this is a half joking question, but we're going to talk about it because people have been tweeting about it tonight. How many plate appearances until we take Aaron Bracho's resurgence serious? Okay. Aaron Bracho is about 66 plate appearances. Yeah, I think I don't got time for that. He's about 66 plate appearances into the season. He is slugging. He is walking. He is not hitting. His average is near 200. He has stopped switch hitting. He came into the system as a switch hitter. He is now a left-handed hitter only. I haven't looked at the splits yet, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not taking the resurgence serious at all. As much as the walks and the slugging are great, I'm sorry, but a 200 batting average, even as a 3 true outcome guy, isn't gonna translate to the major league level. I'm sorry.
Believe in Nolan Jones, who was even higher than that as an outcomes guy, and like for a long time, like that Akron Park is a big park, but I feel like there's got to be something in the wind there. Like that park seems to have guys hit career high home run totals. I need to find out the park factors because it's a big park. It's got deep things. You think it's
a hard park to hit a home run in though.
But I mean, it feels like it should be, but
it's always been a hard park to hit a home run there.
But like it feels like certain guys hit more home runs that like Yu Chang's breakout. Bobby Bradley had his high home run total, I believe. There, like certain guys.
Eric Haas did too.
Yeah, it's like there's something weird there. I need to look at the park factors because I feel like before we get excited, these hit 5 home runs. We need to also just kind of look at what is occurring and like maybe he's taking maybe there's something that Akron Park actually plays smaller than it is. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and throw out the Wes Hodges effect, which is I'm not going to take 2 months of data to change my report.
No, 17 games. Yeah, I'm not changing anything yet. But ask me again in August. I don't know. Our buddy Chuck at the corner. How fast until we realistically see George Valera in Cleveland? Well, he just had his first game. I will say he looked pretty good. I don't know about you, but I have long been a fan of Brandon Williamson, who is now the Reds prospect, was a Mariners pitching prospect. Brandon Williamson to me still looks good. I don't know how great he was tonight, but he still looks good just looking at him physically. And Valera took a lot of good pitches. He didn't chase, which I was impressed with. I thought he still struggled with stuff at the top of the zone. So that's an issue for him. I don't know. I mean, if let's see, it's the second week of May. I would say if he's playing really well in the month of May and Will Brennan or Gabriel Arias or whoever doesn't, take advantage in right field and doesn't run with it, I could see June for Valera, but I think he'd have to play really well this month. And I think whoever's in right field for Cleveland would have to continue to sink. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, they're not going to rush him and he is always beat up. And I think it is probably June is the earliest, and there is a good chance I haven't looked at Oscar's performance down there, but it's like the Oscar might get the first chance if over Valera too.
I think if Valera plays well, he can get the chance over Oscar. But again, I think it also has to be whoever is in right field for Cleveland has to continue to flail too. So
it's got to be is because Valera is another lefty, right? So it's got to really be Brennan down and Valera up. Likely, we're not going to carry both.
We've got a lot of college or draft questions. I'm going to save those for the video portion because they require a lot more nuance, and we're kind of running out of time. So let's take a couple easy ones here before we jump off the audio portion. Carson, which Cleveland prospect all-time prospect were you most wrong about? Jeff, who were you most wrong about as a prospect?
I guess it depends on like when. I really bought into the hype as a kid in so Willie Martinez was the pitcher. Like it was coming up through the minors. I thought he was going to be someone through all the hype. Alex Ramirez was like the first prospect that really bowled me over. Like I thought he was going to be a part of this team's outfield going forward. He did win an MVP, multiple MVPs. It was just in Japan. He's one of those guys nowadays would have probably come back and got a second chance in America and probably have actually been a useful player. As an evaluator, I learned my hard knocks on like guys like Dorsis Polina and Adam Abreu and those, high ceiling guys who are just all tools, no production. So I think like in terms of the upper minors, I always joke about Cord Phelps, but that's probably the guy. I mean, I was always like, you can trade Jason Kipnis because you have Cord Phelps. And I really should go back in now that I'd used different stats and look and see if I was even remotely right on that. But Cord Phelps is always kind of the guy that comes to mind.
Yeah. For me, if we want to go back to before I was really watching, I mean, I was following prospects, but I wasn't obviously going to minor league games like all the time. I for sure thought Jeremy Sowers was a future Cy Young winner. I was definitely all aboard the Jeremy Sowers trade.
I was with you with that one.
Yeah, I thought for sure he was going to be good. RIP to Andy Marte, but I thought Andy Marte was the 30 home run hitter at third base that team needed in the late 2000s or whatever. I thought that was the guy they really needed. As far as more recent prospects go, when I've been going to games, I think I mentioned before, there was a pitcher named Mason Radke who pitched for the Captains who was a little bit older and they were in low A at the time. And he struck out 110 batters in like 100 innings or whatever it was. He was great in low A. I think he got hurt, but I really thought he was going to be something, wasn't a thing. I'm trying to think hitter wise. I mean, I believed in Levon Washington, but he was consistently hurt. I think if he was healthy, he would have been just fine. I had a prospect crush on this guy named Adam Davis. I don't know if you remember him. Don't know why I thought he was going to be good. Yeah, he was not good. I thought he was going to be, they converted him to catcher, and I thought, this will be good. And you want to know what? I was also a big Tony Walters guy too. Tony Walters, I thought was going to have, I don't know. He didn't have a bad career, but he didn't have the kind of career I thought he was going to for sure. So
I think just looking at my list going back to 2015, because that's
Mitch Brown. Sorry.
I started keeping him virtually. I think the only guy who at least didn't get a cup of coffee in the majors looking at my list, which is, I think it's a good thing to say this. It's like every guy who I've ranked in the Guardians top 10 since 2015 has made it to the big leagues except for Juan Hillman.
Oh yeah. Juan Hillman. I do remember that.
It's the one guy who never made it. But everyone else is at least and Brady Aiken. Let me add that. Yeah, of course, Brady Aiken. But those are the two guys that everyone else who I ranked as a top 10 guy has made it. As a matter of fact, top 11, the only guy I would add in who hasn't made it is Lenny Torres. So I've been pretty consistent. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. And I think we can have a longer conversation too about what is a failed prospect. Because to me, if a guy makes the majors, that's a success no matter what. Then you got to go on impact after that. Like obviously, you don't want your impact of like Tyler Naquin, not a failed prospect. I know he wasn't like great, but not a failed prospect because he made
one of the 5 best outfielders they've drafted and developed since Manny Ramirez.
Right. Was he disappointing as a major leaguer? Sure. As a first rounder, yes, but he wasn't a failed prospect. So there's a lot of nuance to that conversation that we could have on another show.
Out of time. I'm going to throw some nuance onto that actually when we come back. I want to do one more nuance piece, but I'm going to cut us here so we don't get in trouble. I want to thank you all for listening, rating, reviewing, downloading. It all helps. Do your part to help our little show grow and grow. We want to go to YouTube to catch the rest of this. We appreciate everyone who is taking part. Someone I don't think I've mentioned in the Everydayers is going through comments today is Justin Nelson is another one of those people.
Great name.
And Mark Leffel. And then Leffel, who your question's coming up in the video point, and then I messed up. It's Fagan, not Fager, for John, I believe is his first name, who always comments, always is there. I knew a John Fager, and now I know John Fagan. So thank you all for listening again, and go Guardians, go! Please beat the Angels. Please beat a lefty for the love of all things baseball. If this is a little off here, I just want to be very honest. This actually isn't one complete episode because I went on autopilot and clicked end recording. So I completely hosed Justin. It doesn't hurt me at all because he's the video editor and I'm the audio editor, and we were going to cut there. So I made my life easier and made his a lot harder, completely hosing him. So if you notice some anger, it's well deserved.
I have left for Milwaukee to go kill Jeff. No, just kidding.
And this is I completely just autopilot. I'm gonna say it's Thursday night. I'm tired. And I was kind of excited about how well I did on my top 10 list. I was not thinking about anything else. I was still focused on that. That question made me, I'm decent at this. And
you wanted on a high note. It's fine.
And then I was just like, oh, I messed up. So we're gonna now I said I had some more background to throw into. Oh yes. So the Naquin thing. I do want to follow up with the background on that. So the other thing you have to keep in mind with Taylor Naquin is, I keep saying Tyler Naquin is, he was a significant underslot signing. So he was a trade down pick. It is not his fault that then they drafted the worst second round. No, that wasn't that round. They drafted a second round, was Mitch Brown in the second. Didn't work out. Devon McClure in the fourth, Kieran Lovegrove. They drafted a series of really interesting players, and you spread that money around, and none of them worked. So it was a trade down pick to spread it around. The day two there was maybe the most exciting day two during my time as a Guardians draft writer. Like that second round, that day two, we were loving every single pick. It was just like, wow, they got another game. Look at this athletic profile. And none of them worked out. So that's kind of the added depth to that.
McClure, I was a big fan.
Oh, I was big. It's great. I mean, they were the kings of taking Arkansas guys. That was the year after taking Dylan Howard. And, that was great. And
we are not going to go there on this.
Worst draft pick in franchise history.
Maybe. Let's get back into mailbag questions. We answered a couple on the audio portion. So if you didn't catch it on the audio portion, here you go. Let's go to our buddy Lamole on Twitter, Fran Mills Eyebrow. I like this question a lot. Wonder why the Guards passed on Drew Gilbert, who seemed like a pretty can't-miss guy, for Chase DeLauder. Given the chance, who would you have taken? Jeff, I'll let you give your answer first, but I will say Drew Gilbert, I believe, did just get promoted to, is it AA or AAA?
I think it's AAA. No, it's AA.
He's
so if you missed it, he in high A he hit 361 with a 421 on base and a 686 slugging. He was my 11th rated.
That's okay.
Player.
That's
he
okay.
And Chase DeLauder is perpetually hurt. He was my 11th rated player. I had him rated higher than DeLauder. DeLauder had bigger tools. I mean, he's a bigger guy. Drew Gilbert is 6'1", but he is that dude where he's a sandpaper guy. You're going to hate him if he's on the opposing team. Now, the one thing you do want to point out is he didn't walk at all. His very big imbalance there, which could be an issue as he hits AA. So that's going to be something to watch because that can be an issue. But he had great exit velocities. Everyone's like, he won't hit for power. I'm like, he's got a good swing. He hit 6 home runs already this year in high A. It's a good swing. He has good levers. He has great exit velocity. I thought that was a really lazy comment when I saw people say that about him. That being said, that's not who I drafted, because when I had my redraft, I took Cam Collier because he was the top 5 talent. And it meant I couldn't draft Parker Messick, and it meant I couldn't draft the kid in the 10th round who I'm blanking on, who was the $1 million bonus. Zibin. I couldn't take Zibin.
Jacob Zibin, yeah.
But I'm totally fine with that. I'll stick with mine. I think that Cam Collier is going to be special. I haven't looked at the numbers this year, so maybe I'll go and see that's wrong. But yeah, I would have taken Gilbert or DeLauder. And the upside, if you take Gilbert, honestly, is you also save a pretty decent chunk of change that would have allowed you to get some more interesting talent.
I watched a ton of Tennessee baseball last year because of Chase Dollander, I had to forget which Chase was on their team because the other one's doing better this year. But I fell in love with a lot of the guys in their team. Drew Gilbert, who was the other guy I said in left field.
Jordan Beck was the
Jordan Beck. Love Jordan Beck. Trey Lipscomb. There's a lot of guys in that club that I
Ben Joyce, the reliever.
Yeah, they had a fun club
Blake
last year.
Tidwell is pitching really well for the Mets.
Yeah, so there were a lot of guys in the team I really liked. That being said, I think at that pick, I definitely was hoping for Drew Gilbert. Mikey Romero was interesting. I'm trying to think who else there.
Romero,
I was all in on
some negative reports on.
Who?
About attitude with Romero.
Okay. Yeah. Cooper Zerpe was one I thought for sure that pick was going to be Cooper Zerpe. I was almost positive that's who it was going to be.
There's no starter with his slot.
Yeah. Chris Sale.
No, he's got a different one. It's not the same. Like Zerpe's there is no starter with his release angle point. It's a reliever profile.
And then Eric Brown was the other guy I really liked in that spot. So
I did like Eric Brown.
I did like Chase DeLauder. I think I would have been Drew Gilbert for sure because he's fast in the majors, and I think my second guy would have been Eric Brown. If not for Zerpe, I was still a big Zerpe guy.
I mean, DeLauder was my third guy. Like in fairness, he was my third, but he was. I like the other guys more, and it's frustrating right now, specifically because DeLauder and he's had
Campbell's not playing
his whole
either.
Career. No, and we don't have anything for sure on that. But again, he wasn't even the second rounder. Parker Messick was our second rounder. He
pitched good the other night. He threw 7 shutout innings. If we're talking about around the farm Friday, he threw 7 shutout innings. So what are you gonna do? Let's see.
Cry silently. Question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that's all we've been
doing.
That all right, our buddy Nolan Dasick, George Valera playing spring training in the first Clippers game tonight. Is that because of a lack of other center fielders, or can we expect to see him in center in the majors? I would say tonight was because they had Oscar and right and Richie and left. I think that was just by nature of who was on the team. Richie's played some center the last few nights too, but I think they want to make sure Valera is an option in center field if possible. But I don't know if I'd necessarily consider him one, but I think a lot of it has to do with availability too, because John Kenzie Noel has played right field for them. He's at third base because those guys are back, even though he's not a third baseman.
Yeah, they just don't have a choice. Some people think Richie Palacios has no position, so you don't want to put him in center and like sacrifice your pitchers, especially when you got some young guys out there. You don't want to set them up to fail. We know Oscar can't handle it. Valera has the most experience, but I don't think there's any chance of him playing there.
I do not. I mean, I think he can play. I'm not saying he's a good center fielder. I would rather have Will Brennan or Quan play center if they need to give Miles Straw.
No, I don't think it's. Yeah, I don't think it's close. I think he is the David Fry of center fielders. David Fry catcher of center fielders.
Yeah, we're gonna have another Valera question later in the mailbag. Darren, do you see Williams being called up before McKenzie and Savali are back, or does that create too much of a roster crunch when you consider Sticks has to be added back and Morris soon? Yeah, no. Definitely not Williams before McKenzie and Savali, not at all. If Williams was to be called up before those two got back, that would mean that
they traded Bieber.
They traded Bieber, or Cale Quantrill and Bybee and Allen all got like severe food poisoning and we're going to miss like 2 weeks. Like, that's the only thing I could think of.
You'd have to, it would be like if all of a sudden all of them decide to quit baseball and instead start a reality show. Like it's not happening. There's no, and even if that happened, I don't even think they would go to Williams this quickly. Because here's the thing, again, what I've talked about is someone's going to get sent down when everyone's healthy. That's the way of it. So they're not going to make that jam worse. And again, Williams, I talked about in the offseason. He had more AA starts than Bybee. Bybee moved ahead of him, in our prospect ranks. But I think part of the Williams thing is too, like he's got Scott Boras, and that's going to get contentious quickly. And I still think, again, this team has so many starters on their 40-man. I still don't think he's going to pitch in the majors this year. I think they have a lot of guys. At some point, Cody Morris is going to get some opportunities. At some point, things are going to happen. Yeah, he's throwing. It's like right now, Gavin Williams is probably like 7th on the chart. So I don't think we see him this year. Plesac will probably get opportunities again, like as a chance to see if there's anything left.
All right, Drew. This is a good one too. Draft questions. This is probably for you, Jeff. Thoughts on Brandon Sproat and Virginia Tech outfielder Jack Hurley. Sproat seems like a Cleveland guy, but not sure of his value at 23. And can Jack Hurley stick in center?
Yeah, Sproat is not so much 23. He's a senior. He'll be a preferred senior. He'll get a decent amount of money. He's, again, right now, this is a draft class where no one has really stepped up in the pitching group. Like, Sproat throws hard. He throws very hard. But, like, it's not been necessarily great. He's got a walk rate of 4 this year as a 22-year-old, as he turns 23 in September. But as a 22-year-old, which is old for the level, he's had the high home run rate. He's missing bats at the best level ever. He's never struck out more than 9, and this year he's at 11.8. It's been a solid season, but he hasn't, ERA doesn't really matter that much, but a 44 stands out when it's like in college. Like when you are the oldest guy and you're throwing 98, it's a little bit of a concern when the ERA is nearly 5. I know there are other stats, but like on a very basic level, it's like, no, when you were throwing that hard, guys shouldn't be making enough contact to get that to happen. And his hit rate isn't that necessarily high either, but he's hurting himself with walks. He's giving up the long ball. He's a second round guy. And I don't think, again, with him being a senior, they're going to pay the money for it. I like Hurley a lot. I don't think he sticks in center. I think he's probably a left fielder, which diminishes his value. That was kind of the knock on Drew Gilbert. Well, some people, I think Drew Gilbert's going to be a plus defender in center, but there were those who thought he's going to have to move to left. Hurley does a little bit of everything. He's maybe closer to like 50s across the board than like 55, 60. He's just outside the top 20 for me. I think basically the problem is I think there's going to be some prep pitchers that go higher, and I am just not high on prep pitchers in general. And there's going to be a better prep guy. There's going to be someone like Matt Shaw or Brendan Taylor available. And as much as I like Hurley, he's probably going to be about 4th or 5th amongst the college outfielders when it's all said and done for me. So would I hate it? No. Would I be disappointed? Yes.
Fair enough. I like Sprout a little bit, but yeah. Robert De Niro. He probably hasn't heard that before. Are the Guardians waiting on service time manipulation to be done before calling up Bo Naylor? Can't be, because he'll sit on the bench behind Zunino. Well, service time manipulation is never done. Like by not having him because they already started his clock last year at the end of the year. So that's not really a thing. And
it's the Super 2 cutoff.
It's the Super 2 cutoff, which for Bo Naylor, I don't think ends up being a big deal.
May 23rd, I think, is what people are thinking is going to be this year.
Yeah, Super 2 changes every year. There's no set date.
And part of that right now is like, because the assumption is like Allen and Bybee will both be Super 2 guys, but if one of those guys ends up sent back to the minors, then all of a sudden that 23rd date may not be quite as on the money. I just think, on a very basic level, they went out and signed Zunino and Gallagher for a reason. And, yes, it's been a rough month for Zunino, but last month he was on fire, and that's unfortunately the Mike Zunino experience. It is a roller coaster. But I think they're probably going to be there till June-ish. I would think maybe that late June, early July is a sweet spot for him, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say with him, but I don't think it's not really technically service time. I don't think Super 2 is really the issue for Bo Naylor. I think they're super concerned about that with him. And he has, like I said, his clock has already started, and
I think there's still things I want him to work on too.
Well, he's not having a good time throwing runners out this year. I have to go back and look at more video to see what's up with that. I think some of that has to do with the pitching side of things. So we'll see for sure. But yeah, hopefully that's coming soon. Jeff, do you want to get a quick ad break in here on the extra part of the podcast?
Yes.
All right. Let's take a quick break. We'll get back to more questions in just a second. double the fun of our bumper music, let's talk about our friends again. It's Sorare, the revolutionary fantasy baseball game marketplace transforming fans into owners with officially licensed cards from players around all 30 teams. They have jinxed Juan Soto and Lee Rodriguez, as Jeff said the other day, because those two are not having a good year, but they are part of the team of Sorare guys. They might include some stars you can meet for prizes for playing Sorare, maybe some merch by those guys, although I think Soto's starting to heat up. Managers who rank near at the top of the leaderboards can win a variety of rewards. Those games happen twice weekly and span a 3 to 4 day cycle. Prizes vary depending on competition. So head to sorare.com/lockedon. That's SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. And our good buddy Alex Super on Twitter, who does a lot of content for Sorare, he can help you set your lineup. If you ask him, his Twitter handle is @LexSuper. He will definitely give you some good advice on how to win some cards and some competitions in Sorare. And then also check out the game Friday night on Sirius XM on the Guardians and Angels at 7 o'clock. All right, let's jump back into the mailbag, Jeff. Where are we at? Let's see. Got that one in. Here's another George Valera question, since we'd love to talk about George Valera tonight. How likely or unlikely is it that Valera steals the right field job at some point later this year or sometime next year? I think that's the hope, right? I feel like they would love him to claim that job, right? Like force him to call him up and get in the lineup every day and kick butt, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a chance. And he's not. So I think when you're looking at just like tools, Gonzalez is probably the toolsiest. Like if you want the guy who's probably would hit the most home runs if everything broke great, but he's the worst defender. If you want the guy who's like the best defender, best runner, that's Brennan. If you want a guy who's maybe a hybrid in the middle, that could potentially be Valera. I think the one thing that stands out though is that he is 100% like going to need a caddy, and that there are like he needs a platoon partner. That is without a doubt. I don't think it's going to come together for him otherwise, and that's pretty much uniform in reports on him. And then the health is the concern, and then I'm curious to see how things go in a repetition of AAA. I think there is some concerns from last year about like holes in his swing and things like that people brought up. So he's got a lot to prove. I don't think it's necessarily one of those things where we just assume this is his job because he's been this big name prospect for a while. So I think it could be, but I also think that we also need to realize he's not a blue chipper. He wasn't one of those top 3. I don't think he was top 4 on most boards who really followed the minors, with Naylor being that guy solidly there. So yeah, it absolutely has the potential, but I also don't want people to think that he is a slam dunk.
Yep, agreed. John also wants to know, when will they call up Bo Naylor? When they call up Bo Naylor, do you get rid of Zunino or Gallagher? I think it's Gallagher because they paid the money to Zunino and they're going to stick with that. Because look, you can't play Gallagher a couple days a week. You just can't. He can't hit. I know Zunino can't hit, but this is like Luke Mealy and Austin Hedges, where Zunino is struggling right now, but he can run into one, and Cam Gallagher is just not a good hitter. So I know he's been the better defender this year, but I just don't think they'll cut bait with Zunino.
Agreed. It's Gallagher is exposed. There's a reason why he didn't play in the majors last year, and Zunino, there's a reason why they gave him the money they gave him. They like him, and there's the hope that he'll just, like I said, it is a Mike Zunino experience. He is a very streaky guy. There's ups, there's downs. They knew that when they were signing on. And not say that Gallagher isn't a great dude in the clubhouse, but we know that Zunino, through all of his stops, has been extremely well loved.
Yeah. And then John also had a follow up. He said, not really a farm question, but wants to know if we should be worried about Jose's thumb still. He did tweet us a split. And right now, Jose has a 914 OPS against right-handers and a 509 OPS against left-handers right now. So I don't know if the splits has to do with his thumb so much, because the Guardians actually wanted him to hit right-hand. He hit right-handed in the home run derby last year because his thumb was hurting, but he still wanted to do it. and they said, okay, you could do it if you hit right-handed. And
like that's in retrospect, that's maybe the dumbest thing of the year. Like his thumb is broken. Go ahead, and a worthless thing that messes up swings. That some guys
it doesn't really. I don't believe it messes up swings, but he was hurt, so it's an issue. But if they asked him to hit right-handed, they were probably trying to protect the one thumb that was damaged. So I don't think so. I think him not hitting lefties so far this year has to do with just some short platoon or some weird short samples with platoons and not facing a ton of lefties either. I don't know what the split is yet, but we'll see. I'm not too worried yet. I think he's got to be better, but I just don't think that he's got to adjust to what pitchers are throwing him because he's not seeing good pitches.
He's just that aggressiveness that seemed to jump in last year is stayed there, which is unfortunate because his superpower leading up to that broken thumb was his patience. Like that was, he didn't swing at bad pitches. He was just like Quan, and that just hasn't been there since.
Yeah, I think it kind of threw his game off. I mean, look, he's still walking more than he strikes out. He has an 11% walk rate and 8% strikeout rate. His swinging strike rate is still lower than it was a year ago. It's back to normal. I think he's going to be just fine. It's just, kind
of reminds me of like the handmade injury. And now he's had a handmade injury, but like the zapped power of a handmade, even though that's not what he had, is what we're seeing now.
Yeah, his chase rate is still pretty close to what it was last year, which is a problem. It's definitely not as elite as it used to be. So, but the swing strike, he's still making a lot of contact. He's just making contact pitches out of the zone more than he should. So we'll see. David Weber's got a couple here. One we're not going to be able to answer, David. I'm sorry, but if you knew Murphy was going to be this great, excluding Espino, what trade would you offer? Would you have proposed to get Murphy to Cleveland? He threw out Williams, Rocchio, Brennan. I think Williams, Rocchio, Brennan, I don't think it would have gotten, I don't know. I would probably guess that Oakland didn't want Espino because
I think they might have liked him. They have taken risks on similar types of arms in the past.
Okay.
So,
they would
James
have known he was
Caprillion
having issues.
Yeah, but I mean, James Caprillion, they got in the Sonny Gray deal when his arm was like already fallen off, and they were okay taking that risk for the ceiling. They knew that with, not Tim Anderson, but Justin Parker. Was that the pitcher? I can't remember. They have a history.
Jared Parker
of getting guys they knew who had some ceiling but some injury risk. One thing to point out again is I think Estuary Ruiz was their guy. Estuary Ruiz, I have run him down a bit this year, but I believe would be Cleveland's most effective outfielder if they had him right now with the 665 OPS. I'd have to go look at his weighted runs created plus. His OPS plus is a 93. That seems like miles above what Cleveland has. He's been a really strong defender, I believe, as well. I could be wrong there. That's just my eye test from those early games. The data isn't great on his defense, but 95 weighted runs created plus. I believe that'd make him Cleveland's second best hitter. So that's who they wanted. And Cleveland doesn't have anyone like him. And they didn't have that guy to offer. And George Valera is not the guy. And Rocchio, they have their talent is up the middle already. I as much as it's great to go back and say, what could they offer? I don't think anything they can offer short of being like, okay, Williams and Bybee is going to get you.
Well, they had to get a third team involved anyway.
Yeah.
Atlanta had to get a third team involved anyway.
Cleveland doesn't have a Wild Bill Contreras. They don't have a partial catcher who was an all-star to offer. Like Cleveland needed Contreras. I just think, unfortunately, there was no deal to be had. They didn't have that piece to get Ruiz out of Milwaukee. And it's the shame of it, right? Cleveland's made so many trades with San Diego that if they had gotten Ruiz out of San Diego and one of those other deals they had made through the years,
flipped him. Yeah.
They could have flipped him. That's how you go back and make the deal happen. It's that you get, Ruiz instead of one of the other prospects in one of those deals.
Yeah. David also wanted to know if we had any updates on Justin Campbell. We do not.
None.
No injury just seems really unfortunate. Not great. All right. Caleb, any concern with Angel Martinez's slow start in AA? Hasn't had the same feel for contact, striking out a lot more. Walk rate is about normal. Yeah, I watched him tonight in the AA game. I watched Nikasian Leftwich pitch in. Biggest thing I could see from him is he is just mishitting a lot of breaking balls. He just seems a little bit out in front, and he's popping a lot of breaking balls up. And I'm trying to think. Let me see if the data shows that. Yeah, infield fly ball rate is 24%. Actually, it was about what it was in high A year ago, so it's not terrible. it just seems like he is just getting out in front and lifting a few more balls than he should. Looks like his ground ball rate is, still kind of iffy. Line drive rate not as good. A little more pull heavy than he used to. Yeah, I think he's out in front a lot. I think the breaking stuff kind of has him on his front foot a little bit. Hopefully they'll get him to stop jumping forward on some of that stuff and he'll settle in. But yeah, he's walking plenty. The problem is his average is just so bad and it keeps his OBP down. I think he'll be just fine. I'm not super concerned. I wish he would have picked up where he left off a year ago, but the strikeouts being up or just the league adjusting to him and he'll adjust back. And he still is young for level for what that is worth.
I also feel like in general, like that team is not performing. Like it almost feels like everyone is being drug down isn't the word I wanted, but everyone's kind of bringing it down. That is a lineup I worry about some degree of pressing because they're just it's ugly in AA right now offensively.
And I will point out Akron has a new hitting coach. I don't know who it is, but in the last couple of years it has been junior
Kevin Air. No, not the wrong junior. Junior, man, and he's like a rising star in the system. Why can't I think of the last year I was making such a big deal? I'm like, he is like,
that's
oh my god, that's so annoying.
Right now it's Mike Mergen. It's Mike Mergenthal right now, but last year it was Junior Betances is who it was.
Betances, that's it.
He has helped a lot of guys out. He's helped Will Brennan. He's helped Oscar Gonzalez, just a ton of guys, and Bo Naylor, I think too. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know really a whole lot about Mike Mergenthaler, but
a lot of guys are not playing.
Junior Betances, though, has been credited with a lot. I mean, he pitched to Jose in the home run derby. That's how much he meant to Jose. So, not having him, maybe that's a thing. He is a rising star in the system, and he has moved up because he deserved that promotion. But he maybe a visit from Junior would help. All right, last question before we get out of here. It's our buddy Mark Leffel again, an everydayer. Let's say the Guardians, this is a fun question. I don't know if it's possible, but let's say the Guardians are 10 games under in late June and the Pirates turn things around and are 10 games over. The Pirates have been sliding as of late, but they are still over 500. They still lead their division by half a game, I should say. What does a Bieber for Henry Davis trade look like? So I can't see the Pirates making that deal. I don't. I know.
I think, like I said, I think we undervalue Bieber sometimes. He ended up a top 20 pitcher last year. Teams feared him in the postseason. I think, a year and a half of an ace is valuable. And he was a top 10 pitcher in the American League last year. That's, we see the ups and downs with him. And sometimes we get focused on the downs. I think there's value there to the point that I'm like, what's going to take, Davis plus there's some interesting guys like Hunter Barco is such a Guardians type of guy who's like in the teens,
loved him a year ago. Yeah.
Before his injury. And it's like, he could be traded. And that's like an interesting secondary piece. I've always kind of liked Kyle Nichols. Wasn't he the Ball State guy? Yeah. So Kyle Nichols is a Ball State via Walsh High School, I want to say, who uncle is Todd Blackledge. Yes. The quarterback. But his velocity, he had a big jump his senior year. Junior year of college, hitting like 97. He'd been a low 90s guy before that, and he had a ton of break. Like it was like one of those pitches that had like 20 inches of movement. So just an absolute nasty pitch that I think.
Jared Jones too.
Yeah, I mean, and Nichols came over from the Marlins. I mean, they've got a deep system that's interesting. It's Hudson Head was a big piece in their trading Musgrove to the Padres. Carmen, I never get his name right. Mlodzinski. I haven't seen what he's done, but he's a guy who led the Cape in strikeouts. We know the value they put in that.
AAA.
I thought he was a guy that the Guardians might look at. You can't trade hurt guys, so I'd also be kind of intrigued, like if they would ask about someone like Burrows or and Hunter Barco is hurt as well, but it's a different type of, like, you can trade a guy in the minors who's not in the 40-man who's hurt, but Will Crow, who they drafted like twice and didn't sign, but he is not there. But I think they could actually get Burrows even though he's hurt. I think you can trade for, as long as it's known, a hurt minor leaguer. It's when it's someone who's on the major league roster. I don't believe you can trade them when they're hurt. They're really interesting. It's a super deep system. It would make a ton of sense for them. And the only thing you say is, I don't think Endy Rodriguez is really a catcher, and Henry Davis is putting up some numbers in AA right now. But it's a really fun idea. I thought that was a good call there, just in terms of a question. I enjoyed that question.
Yeah, it was fun to think about. I don't think the Pirates do it because Endy Rodriguez is not their future at catcher, and Henry Davis is, and I don't know who would be their catcher if they traded Henry Davis. So. As much as Bieber would be a great fit for their rotation, and if they were in it, I mean, a year and a half is great of an ace, but I don't know. They don't have a catcher if they don't go with that. So I guess you could always go out and find another one.
And Austin Hedges currently has a weighted runs created plus of 23. So for all the people who are like, bring back Hedges, it's like, bring him back as a coach. Sounds great. But he's cooked as a hitter. Like it is to the point where legitimately you should DH for Hedges, not for your pitcher. I mean, most pitchers could probably get better than a 23 weighted runs created plus. Most could, I bet.
All right. Well, that wraps up the mailbag portion. That we're trying not to have Jeff end this thing too early the second time. Friday night on Sirius XM, it is Tyler Anderson, Logan Allen at 7:10. Tyler Anderson not having a great year. Fastball velocity stinks, which is actually not good for the Guardians for some reason. And everything on his Baseball Savant page stinks, except for average exit velocity. He actually does not allow a lot of hard contact, so that's fine because the Guardians don't hit the ball hard. Everything else is pretty ugly. Whip is 164. He's walking 10%. Doesn't miss a lot of bats. His fastball gets creamed. His changeup gets creamed right now. Everything else is bad except for the cutter. So you would hope the Guardians can do some damage. You know what? I'm going to say it. The Guardians are going to beat a left-hander Friday night. They're going to beat Tyler Anderson. Not physically, but with by hitting
one way or another is what you're saying.
Don't come back to Cleveland, Tyler Anderson. That'll show you. No, I think they will. They'll get a win Friday.
We like Tanners, not Tylers in Cleveland. Get out of here.
That's right. No Tylers, Tanners only.
That's why Tyler Naquin had to leave.
Totally fans, Tanner fans. We're start. Never mind. Not gonna go there. Let's get out of here before I say something I shouldn't say.
I know where you're going with that one. Justin's trying to get us fired.
Thanks for listening this week. I need to get out of here before I get myself in trouble.
But yes, thank you. We hope you enjoyed the long show, even with me messing it all up, making this twice the work for Justin. So make sure to leave a nice comment for Justin. I did appreciate the comment who talked about you not holding the Jonas Brothers accountable. If you're a parent, I highly recommend the Jonas Brothers song about What's That Shape? Ooh, what's that shape? It's one of my son's favorite songs where they sing about pentagrams and octagons, and it's caused my daughter to learn about octagons. So go check that out. So we can have some Jonas in both of these. But when it goes long and it gets late, when it's super late, we are normally have said goodnight by now. You get some silliness. So there's some silly. But thank you all. We appreciate you checking us out every day. And go Guardians, go. I'm not hitting end recording. That's for you. Hands off.